What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G.O.D. Don't believe in P.H.O.D. She keep playing me down. I'ma play her for fun. You don't really know my mental. Let me give you the picture like stencil. Falling out in the crowd. No flooring was pouring down. See that pain was all around. See my mom was kinda loud. Didn't know which way to turn. Flow was cool, but I still felt burned. Energy up, people feel my surge. I'ma kill everything like this burn. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut.
This is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Web of Deception. In this episode, number 11, I'm joined again by Jason Goodman. Jason, thanks again for taking time to help us understand this unbelievable web of deception here. And in the first 10 episodes, a couple of times, there's this character whose name keeps coming up, and I keep saying, who the hell is this guy? 'Cause I keep hearing about him. I have no idea who he is, and yet I think you spent a fair amount of time with him. And I'm talking about a guy named Quinn Michaels. And I think that before I showed up, before you and I started doing anything on Las Vegas, you and Quinn Michaels were doing a bunch of stuff, and I wasn't sure, is there a connection to George Webb with Quinn Michaels? And if so, let's explore, who's this guy? Where did he show up? What's he all about? And then he was all involved in this artificial intelligence thing that was called Tyler AI or something. So I thought it might be worth taking the time to explore who the hell is Quinn Michaels? Why does anybody give a damn what he has to say? How did you get engaged with this guy? What's the connection to George Webb? And what were you two doing? So can you help us out here? What's all this about?
Well, I mean, you know, like all the other characters we've been speaking about in this series, Quinn Michaels was introduced to the Crowdsource the Truth world by George and, you know, his menagerie of morons. I remember, I mean, look, we've spoken about how I set out to create a new business. I left the world of making 3D movies and decided I was going to become a YouTuber and everything. And so connected up with George, and then he brought in Trish, and we were doing these shows. And I mean, look, even in retrospect, I think in a lot of regards, those shows hold up from the standpoint of being like, you know, funny internet fodder of the QAnon PSYOP days. And it was interesting. I'm even proud of it in terms of the history of transition from, you know, very expensive early television productions to the 90s becoming reality television to live streaming to independent news. It fits in there somewhere. And so this notion that a lot of new people were coming at me all of a sudden, I mean, it's not natural, of course, but it goes with the territory of starting this new show and putting out this huge net to, you know, crowdsource the truth. And, you know, you and I have spoken separately on our shows, John Cullen Investigates and that stuff. how powerful this crowdsourcing is. And I didn't invent it. I just sort of discovered it and created a brand name around it and put some attention on it. And I think that other people, including Robert David Steele, who were talking a lot about OSINT, open source intelligence and things. I never heard that term. I just sort of like was watching YouTube and noticed how the machine learning algorithm interacted with my own curiosity on particular subjects to lead me towards information. And I felt it empowering me in the same way I did when I was a little kid. You've told us that you used to work at Oracle. When I was like 13 and 14 and started messing around with computers, I guess Oracle was around, but not for the software that I was using. And the first time I saw a database and the concept of, well, wait a minute, I could put all of my friends' names in a database, and when I want to have a party, I just hit print. I don't have to sit here and sign all these invitations. I can have a huge party. And so I could feel how the crowdsourcing technique was utilizing the power of computing and networks and connecting people and crunching information to really help the process of investigative journalism. And anyway, they want to crap in that pool to make it so that going to the crowdsourced resource.
Yeah, I think it's worse than that. So you just used a term, and I want to, sometimes we go, whizzing by something so fast and we take it for granted. You use this term OSINT.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we take a minute to talk about that, because I think this OSINT concept may be at the heart of why Langley has you on their top 10 list of people that aren't on any top 10 list, right? Well, so they've got a list of top 10 that you see in the post office, and then they got a list of top 10 that nobody gets to see.
Right.
Schellenberger doesn't get to see. Matt Taibbi doesn't get to see, and you're on it, and I'm on it, and Shepard Ambellis is on it, because we're uncovering stuff that really gives these guys diarrhea. And so, all right, so now this OSINT concept is effectively Langley's terminology for crowdsource the truth. Right.
Yeah.
All right, so OSINT is their and that probably cost that was a $7 million project. They brought a McKinsey to come up with
like
the terminology,
$80
document, right, to document
6.
it. Yeah. So OSINT is open source intelligence. And come on, this is what we do. We're not hackers. We don't have special credentials. We're not going into anybody's back door. We're not logging into systems and, using admin. That's not what we do here. We open source all the data that we use. So everything we're doing is Johns Hopkins, WHO, CDC. When it comes to the pandemic, when it came to the Las Vegas shooting, it was either eyewitness footage or LVMPD body cam footage. It's all open source. The fact that you codified it and that you had credentials, right? If you had been Jacob Chansley talking about crowdsource the truth with the hat and the horns and a staff, I don't think they would have taken it quite as seriously. The fact that you're coming out of Hollywood and you had some resources and you had the ability to go to England, you had the ability to go to New Zealand. That's another thing. You got to remember, you were flying all over the place, though, right?
Here's the thing, though. That wasn't like I'm some kind of millionaire doing that. I was just getting plane tickets and stuff. But it's like McDonald's, right? When McDonald's came along, they didn't invent the hamburger, but those two brothers figured out a way to make a restaurant where you could have the whole, mechanizing of it. The way that I put it out there and told everybody about it and got people excited about it and involved in it, it was almost like the commercialization of it. By making it into a business model, this is what it was. And this ties directly to Quinn, actually.
Yeah, my point is you didn't have a food truck, you had a restaurant, and you had your chops, right? So you had the ability to actually do it. And compared to somebody who's got, like a little food cart that they're pulling behind,
it was working.
Cherokee,
it was figuring stuff out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why they send in the clowns. That's why you are, in a matter of months, surrounded. And George because George is this chaos. George is, we got to go, I got to run, let's get on the air. We've only got 5 minutes. This thing, so it seems somewhat like it's natural that you're meeting all these guys and Robert
Right.
David Steele and this guy and that guy, and it's like, whoa, and we go to England, and now I'm with WikiLeaks. It's like, wow, this is working. And everybody else is looking and going, dude, how did you get so caught up with so many spooks in so little time? And so how does he introduce this Quinn Michaels to the to everything that's going on? So you go to WikiLeaks, you go to England, you got the Port of Charleston, crazy stuff going on. How and where and when is Quinn Michaels introduced to the scene?
So I'm pretty sure the first, we met him over the internet. I met him over the internet, and I'm pretty sure the first interaction really with Quinn Michaels was this interview. I've reproduced it on Odyssey. We'll get into playing a lot of this Quinn Michaels footage when we go to the sponsor exclusive part. People can
let me tell people about that. So if you guys want to help support Jason, so kind of the heart of the matter here is that when these guys realized they couldn't fool Jason, they said, all right, so then we're going to sue him. And we're going to sue him every which way till Sunday. And we've got some other friends that are CIA, and we're going to get them to sue him over his thumbnails. So Jason's been sued 97 different times, and this is what they call
20.
lawfare. Well, all right, but it's called lawfare, and it's when if they don't have the content, they can't go toe to toe with you. They're either going to do the psychological warfare, or they're going to do the lawfare if they can figure out a way to serve you. And in Jason's case, he got served. So to support Jason, you can go to subscribestar.com, crowdsource the truth, or you can go to patreon.com, crowdsource the truth. But if you want to get to a library of stuff, you can also subscribe at Odyssey, same amount of money, and you get access to all the same stuff. But there's this library of stuff that goes way, way back, right? You've got an archive of stuff here, like the first interview you did with George.
And Quinn.
Right.
We have this.
And Quinn, right? We're going to look at that. So that's why this Odyssey thing is important. And even if you guys are like a patron at Patreon or a patron at Subscribestar, you still can go to Odyssey and access a lot of this legacy stuff. So
this is free.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
So this is odyssey.com at Crowdsource the Truth.
Yeah.
And you can also support Jason over at Substack at Crowdsource the Truth. Substack.com/Crowdsource the Truth. So please consider supporting Jason for $5 a month. It's makes a whole lot more sense than the Sunday Times.
Thank you very much, John. And so I don't want to show this here on YouTube because the problem is some of these videos have already been kicked off. Actually, as I look at this, I don't think this is the first one because there was one previous Quinn Michaels interview that I recall George was here in the apartment. I got to look around for that. I was looking earlier and I couldn't find it so easily. I mean, all this stuff has been deleted from the internet, John, because in part, I don't think they want people to be able to, have this continuity of going back and figuring it out. I mean, think about it. If thousands and thousands of people could pore over this material for the past 7 years, there would literally be people emailing me, hey, did you notice this thing in the back of Quinn's car? And I'd be like, what? Holy crap. How does he have that thing that was in somebody else's house on some other, whatever? Stuff like that would inevitably come up and has throughout the 7 years. So I think this might have been the second ever video with Quinn, but in answer to the question of how did he come about, there was this thing. I really don't know that much about this thing, but there was this thing called Cicada 3301. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but I just read something yesterday about cicadas, so go ahead. I'm all ears.
It was some kind of puzzle that was put out on the internet that, Chavez was involved with this and Quinn was somehow involved in this. It was sort of like a puzzle of unknown origin initially, I think. So that Wikipedia says, and again, we don't trust Wikipedia, but this is just the easiest access to a general explanation that we can criticize and question after. But it's a nickname given to 3 sets of puzzles posted under the name 3301 between 2012 and 2014. So that's what I mean. This was going on before I got involved, and all these guys somehow sort of knew each other from this Cicada 3301. It was almost like a QAnon thing, you know? It was like some phenomenon on the internet with these puzzles, and you had to be some kind of genius with data security, cryptography, and steganography to figure this out. And it's been speculated that this was put out by the CIA to find, you know, geniuses at cryptography, and what they don't really know. Like I said, I don't know that much about this. I don't claim to really know anything about this other than, you know, it existed and these guys were involved with it. And, you know, George seemed to know about it and what it was. Like anybody who was like in the know on the internet when I got there in 2017 knew about this and Gamergate and all this kind of stuff. And the other thing that's interesting to observe, John, is that, you know, even the fact that we're talking about Quinn Michaels right now, somebody who I don't know just posted this video of mine on Twitter. Like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were originally going to do this video last week, but you had an internet disruption at your place. And so, I mean, again, someone who I don't know starts bringing up Quinn Michaels. Well, why? Is that somebody who Quinn Michaels knows? Is that somebody who wants us to be talking about Quinn Michaels? I don't know. There's any number of reasons why it might come up. And as you said, he did talk a lot about artificial intelligence. Quinn Michaels himself was like a developer, a programmer that I think I have no ability to.
So George, but George mentions him to you. So one day you and George are sitting around.
People start talking about him because he's got his own channel, and he's like, "Ooh, have you seen this guy?" You know, everybody in the chat and everything is like, "Have you seen Quinn Michaels?" And Trish was telling me a lot about stuff with Quinn Michaels, and messages were coming in about Quinn Michaels. And then somehow George or Trish or whoever, you know, we arranged a Skype interview with Quinn Michaels. And I thought that was it, but I don't think so. And I got to find the first one, because the thing that's so crazy that happens during the first interview, maybe it is during this one, somebody comes up to the window of this car that he's in, and people said it was George's brother. Because you see, when we first met Quinn Michaels, he was living in this place called Mount Shasta. Do you know what that is?
Mount Shasta?
Yeah.
No. North Carolina?
It's in California. I mean, I don't really know what it is either. It's some kind of spiritual... Let's look at it.
Never heard of it.
It's some kind of spiritual retreat. I think there's a lot of like yoga stuff going on there, or I don't know, maybe like...
So when you do the show with George Webb and Quinn Michaels for the first time, does it appear that the two of them know each other? Is it, in other words, they've already met before, or this is the first time they were meeting?
Really say that was my impression, but, you know, it's possible, certainly. So here is Mount Shasta, I guess, and it's, you know, some kind of spiritual retreat. Quinn Michaels
looks like a volcano in the middle of California. What the hell's that?
I mean, I guess that's Mount Shasta. I don't know. Yeah, what is look at this, all this crazy stuff. What's this? I've never seen this before.
That's the Wheel of Death.
What is this? Mount Shasta Spiritual Retreat. Yeah, so see, that's what I mean. There's something weird going on here at Mount Shasta that I don't really know what it is, but George's brother was living there, and I don't even know if that's the actual mount. Here's a much bigger one. This has got to be it. So, I mean, I just don't know what the hell this is all about. But so Quinn was living there, living in his car. There you go. There's Mount Shasta. And see, George's brother has had like a YouTube channel called Climbing Mount Shasta. And he was there in Mount Shasta driving around in some, like, you know, bought from a police auction, like some kind of like shitty Blues Brothers, like Crown Victoria. And that rusted out dust bucket of a piece of shit pulls up next to Quinn Michaels' car, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's George's brother." And I was like, "What?" And I didn't really know what was going on at that time. This was, this is August 2017. This is before any of the lawsuits. I think that's the second interview with Quinn Michaels there in August 2017. And so, I was trying to start crowdsource.
All right. So what was Quinn doing? Quinn Michaels. Why is everybody talking about him in the chat? Why are people bringing him up? What is he doing? Is he levitating? Does he have?
No, he's doing he's doing like programming on air and just like chatting and talking while he's like, I don't even know what,
writing code. He's
writing
code.
Maybe like he's doing something that you can't understand, talking about artificial intelligence and talking about how particle accelerators are hidden around the world. And again, stuff that seems absurd and crazy. But then he's telling me about this lab in, where was it again? Leeds, South Dakota. Yes, Stanford lab. I mean, again, we'll look at some of this stuff when we go over to the sponsored segment. But so he's telling me about this underground lab that has like miles and miles of stuff, and they're, shooting neutrinos through the crust of the earth to create a light speed, communications network. I mean, it just sounds like absurd shit. But then we go there and boom, voila, it's right there in front of you and they have it. It's a science museum about it. And we walked around the whole thing and sure enough, there it is. We went and looked at it. So, I'm intrigued by this kind of stuff. I was like, holy crap, I can't believe that's real. So we started doing some like amazing videos. So he's with me here in South Dakota when we checked that out. And then we went to Mount Rushmore. It was the first time I ever went to Mount Rushmore. I've said many times on the show how I've been there now again since that meeting with Quinn. And I think Mount Rushmore is awesome. So we just sort of got into doing a lot of really interesting and exciting shows. And maybe he was living in Vegas. He wasn't exactly investigating the Vegas shooting, but so he's saying that there's a worldwide network. This is what he was saying. He was saying that there's a worldwide network of these particle colliders, and that what they are is they're creating a planet scale quantum computer that was going to run this Tyler artificial intelligence that was this like, massive artificial. So, I mean, here's this guy saying all this wild, outlandish crap that you're like, what? Sounds insane. But then the first thing he tells you is there's a deep underground science base, and you're like, bullshit. And he says, okay, come meet me there. And look, here it is. They have a map of it in the lower right-hand corner. You can see it. So, I mean, again, perhaps this is one of these things where he's limited hangout trying to build up my trust, but it worked. We went to that science museum. We looked at the base. You can look right out the window and see it. It's amazing. And so then he left and went back to Vegas or wherever he was, somewhere outside of New Mexico or somewhere he was living. And living was either in his car or, he was living in his car, I think. And so I go back to New York and I had somewhere in there, I mean, we were covering all kinds of interesting stuff. Like this is this guy who was in Hogan's Heroes, who made all those crazy videos. He was almost like a precursor. Bob Crane, he was almost like a precursor to Jeffrey Epstein. So, I mean, we just got into a lot of interesting and crazy topics, made a lot of great shows. And then I went as a surprise show to Fermi Lab in Chicago, which the thing in Sanford Lab in South Dakota was shooting neutrinos. This thing was receiving them. And so I went in there and made a whole video in there, and all of the science museum people started freaking out, like, what are you doing? And I didn't understand. I mean, it's like, isn't this just a science museum? What's wrong with making a video? And they just hated it.
Well, all right, so the thing here that just kind of strikes me, right? So sometimes when I'm on Twitter, there will be people on Twitter who will make a declarative statement, and they'll say, there's positron neutrino emitters, and this location, there's 14 locations underground, and da 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 da. And I'm thinking, wow, you must be married to somebody really important. you must be sleeping in the bed with somebody who's whispering some pretty hardcore. In other words, how are you finding this out, Mr. Sleeping in your car? How did you find out all this top secret shit, Mr. Sleeping in the car?
Because he was communicating with this Tyler. That's what he was doing. He was making artificial intelligence things that were able to communicate with this Tyler.
I got you. So the AI was sharing.
That's what his
things
claim was, I believe. I believe.
But this is 10 years
and by the
ago,
way,
man. This is
well, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He did somewhat communicate with me last week when the video came up that we were going to do it and then it went away. He had some pissed off tweets about it. And I mean, I'm not intending to piss him off, but if he wants to communicate with us, I don't have a need to communicate with him. But if he would like to communicate about any of this or correct anything that I'm saying, he's free to do that on Twitter or email or whatever he wants. He was kind of a dick in the end, and, you know, that's fine.
But you haven't said anything derogatory. I mean,
well,
we're just looking at this network. I mean, we're looking at this network of
just to finish the thought, though, so I don't end on that negative statement, even though he did things that I don't agree with, I shouldn't have just characterized them in the way that I did. He did things that upset me. I could still have a conversation with the guy, and if there's something to be hashed out, we could do that. I don't feel like that will happen because in my mind, I've come to the opinion that Quinn Michaels is a social engineer and that he was deliberately sent to me to gain my trust, to, just as all these other people, to screw me up, and that along the way, I do believe he had a medical emergency, and in a rare moment in his life, I behaved like an actual friend, and I think that temporarily confused him, because he was like, wait a minute, this person is like helping me, and I'm here to screw up his life. And then when his health was restored, he got back to that mission and bugged out. My opinion.
Interesting. Well, one of the things that we've been looking at recently, these characters that appear to be social engineering types, or at least their behavior indicates it. You wonder, well, gee whiz, how are they making a living? I know how difficult it is to make a living on Patreon and Subscribestar. And, I produce some pretty bopping videos, with the music and the content, and I got chickens, and I got all kinds of stuff going on there. It's like a circus. and I still don't have 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I've only got, so many patrons, and that I'm barely able to support myself. So somebody like a Quinn Michaels, somebody like a George Webb, how are they making a living? How do they pay the rent?
I'm glad you're asking that. I'm glad you're asking that. Because, so like I said, after that trip to the Fermi lab in Chicago, if I'm remembering this correctly, I hope I have the timeline right. If I don't, it's not critical. People can go back and straighten it out. But somewhere along the way, I come back from the Fermi lab thing, and he calls me. He's in the hospital. His lung collapsed. And it's like really serious. He's like maybe going to die. And also, the whole thing is he's kind of like estranged from his family and not too socialized. He doesn't have a real network around him. So, and it was all right around Christmas. And so I was just feeling like, wow, this is bad. Like, how would I feel if I was all alone in the hospital right before Christmas, feeling like I was going to die? And I was like, I really should go see the guy and see how he's doing, and kind of like, it seems like the right thing for me to do. So I did. I got on a plane immediately and flew to New Mexico and went and spent days with him in the hospital. And I said, listen, man, if you want me to just like sit here and chat with you, we can do that. If you want to make videos to pass the time, we can do that. And he said, yeah, no, let's make videos, get out the camera. And he wanted to do lots and lots of videos from the hospital as he was recovering. And, this concept of how is he going to pay the bill of the hospital was coming up. And so it was in this hospital room that I first came up with the idea of doing the Patreon shows. And we did the first Patreon shows with Quinn Michaels. And that was the impetus for starting it. And we were in this hospital room, and somebody sent him $1,000. And he was like a kid on Christmas. His face lit up, and he was like, oh man, I want to give you half of this. You could buy a new iPad. And I said, I don't want to do that, Quinn. This is your money, And this was how we started the monetization on Patreon. So, I mean, again, it didn't make sense to me because in addition to being friends, we had a business relationship where even if the friendship was going sideways, there's a lot of people who can continue to make that kind of thing work where maybe there's less road trips or something like that. But anyway, we're almost out of time here, John, so we should carry on with this and show some segments from these videos on the sponsor segment, which we can start in just 5 minutes.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Now, right before we wrap up, again, this is a side of you that I know very well that many in the audience don't know, which is how empathetic and supportive you are, and generous. And where is this on the timeline compared to you going to bail out George Webb from jail in Ohio? So that happened before this, because you went out to Ohio with $4,000 to go bail him out. Now
Yeah.
Quinn Michaels is in the hospital, and you show up to help him out. It's like, holy mackerel! I mean, what do you just run around the country with a bag of money? I mean, what's going on here?
Well, remember, when I started Crowdsource the Truth, 21st Century 3D hadn't gone bankrupt or anything like that. I just had to leave Los Angeles and stopped making 3D movies. So I was selling.
I'm not insinuating you're
red
rich.
cameras.
I'm insinuating these guys are bleeding you of cash.
Yeah.
It's like every
I mean, a plane
opportunity.
ticket to New Mexico was probably $350 on a credit card, and then did I pay it that month or the next month? I don't really remember.
Did you pay his hospital bill though? Did
Oh
you
no,
pick up his
no.
hospital? Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
It'd be like
Okay,
a
I thought-
$99 hotel room and a plane ticket. I didn't pay his hospital bill.
Okay.
Something happened with like destitute insurance or something like that, and probably we all wound up paying his damn hospital bill, if you know what I mean.
But you did bail George out, though. You went to Ohio
That I
in a
did.
previous
Now
episode,
that
right?
money I got back, the $4,000 from the cops I got back eventually, but not the money for the plane ticket or the hotel. There I did pay George's plane ticket, George's hotel, the rental car. So.
All right. Very interesting. All right, guys, we're going to go over to the patron-only portion of the show where we're going to watch some of these video clips to keep us out of legal jeopardy. So we'll be doing that over at Patreon and Subscribe Star for the I Am John Cullen patrons. And for those of you who are supporting Jason's work over at Odyssey or over at Subscribe Star or Patreon, you'll be able to see all this detail in just about 5 minutes. So thanks for joining Web of Deception. I'm John Cullen. We'll see you again next week.
What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G.O.D. Don't believe in T.H.O.D. She keep playing me down. I'll play her for fun. Don't really know my mental. Let me give you the picture my stencil. Falling out in the drought. No flow rains and pouring down. See that pain was all around. See my mom was kinda loud. Didn't know which way to turn. Flow was cool, but I still felt burned. Energy up, people feel my surge. I'ma kill everything like this burn. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut.